Halo composer talks about DEI in video games. Now, this comes from the great Marty O'Donnell, who did all of the Bungie era Halo music. Well, all the Bungie games. So he didn't do like Halo Wars and stuff like that, right? But all of like, you know, the trilogy. Let's just keep it simple. All right, the iconic Halo theme. This all comes from Marty O'Donnell. Now, before we start talking about what he said here, do keep in mind that recently, well, this year, Marty O'Donnell has made the switch to get into politics. He's pushing to get into Congress in Nevada, and he went hardcore pro-Trump and all that type of shit, you know. So just keep that in mind so you understand this, right, and why he's getting a lot of pushback. You know, when it was announced he was going into politics and he said which side he was on, yeah, he got a lot of pushback, as you can imagine. Now, I am not a political channel, and I'm certainly not going to talk about a foreign nation's politics because that's just fucking retarded and the best way to look stupid. But his comments on DEI in video games is very interesting because he says a whole lot of shit that many people like myself have been saying for a long fucking time, okay? And it's at the stage where it's like, if you don't believe it's there, you're a fucking retard. Okay, it is there. It is there. Now, I know I trash on a lot of people that's all they talk about, and I'm going to continue to do that because when it comes to talking about video games, a lot of these people are fucking shit at it. They can only talk about the DEI. If we woke up in the morning and it was just Thanos snapped out of existence, they'd have fucking nothing. I'd be fine. Right? But we have Marty O'Donnell talking about it, okay? And do you know what came out of this? Something I never thought would actually happen, right? A channel called HaloFollower, which is just a Halo channel. I'm subscribed to this channel on my main account. Didn't expect him, of all people, to talk about this because, you know, this just isn't really something he gets into. And he's one of those, okay, I'm not trying to trash the dude here, but he's one of those, let's try to be more positive type of channels, okay? Whereas people like me are looking at the Halo show going, holy fuck, talking about a back alley dumpster abortion. He's like, well, let's see if there's anything about it we like. I think we can name like 2 things and the rest can fuck off. But I was told, I got a DM saying, hey, you should check out this video. So he just said what about Halo? I'm very curious. So buckle up because we have an old school lethal reacts. We'll put it on 1.25. All right, let's listen.
Guys, this is a spicy one. Marty O'Donnell, ex-Halo composer, talks about go woke, go broke in the video game industry. This is a polarizing topic, and it is probably my first time talking about this, so please...
Off topic, but what mods is he running here? Because this looks great.
Go easy on me. But listen, I got some things I want to say about this in the video game industry and in Hollywood. I want to share some insights and what my point of view is, and also just see what someone in the industry says, because it's nice to get some different points of view, right?
Now, again, you don't normally expect or see channels like HaloFollower talking about this type of stuff. They tend to avoid it like the fucking plague. But it's getting to the point where just the casual person can't avoid this stuff.
There's been so much pandering and so much virtue signaling that it's starting to feel a bit kind of like people are better than you if they believe different things, which has been the case for ages, I'm assuming. But yeah, he's absolutely right. Like I said, like, dude, even people like HaloFollower are at the stage where we're going, yo, what the fuck? Pretty much since the beginning of time. But Halo series composer Marty says video game industry is now pandering because they fear being on the wrong side of some special interest groups who can be very loud and very annoying.
I think everyone in the world agrees. Especially on the very loud and very annoying part.
So let's talk about what he says. As someone that's been in the video game industry for a couple of decades, I want to hear what this person says. I do want to preface this video by saying that I am not a huge fan of Marty O'Donnell as of late, as he has said some very controversial things on Twitter. He actually ran for Congress recently, and a lot of the things that he said and loudly said was not exactly vibing with most people. So there's that. He says, are you going...
Well, again, not a political guy, but I would say it was pretty 50-50.
To tell a good story, right? Let's forget about those other things he says. Basically, are you going to make a good game? Are you going to do something that's compelling emotionally for people, that's fun for people? That's what creators should be concerned about, right?
I don't think it matters what medium you're in. When it comes to entertainment, that's just basic bitch shit, right? And just because we're looking at it on screen, the Halo trilogy, perfect example, right?
And I completely agree. Now, as a creator, as being in a free society, you're allowed to create whatever you want. If you want to create a game that is all about the society and social stuff and justice in that area, then go for it, right?
Absolutely. I agree with that too. If you want to make a game that's just about social justice, you have every right to make that. But when majority of gamers say, nah, fuck that, I want to kill aliens, and they don't buy your game, you can't get mad about it, which is the problem we're at.
The problem is that it feels like almost every game and every movie has some sort of bringing out their political stance in the world that we...
Wow. Talk about fucking normies starting. I'm not calling him like a Halo normie because honestly his knowledge probably fucking bigger than mine, right? But I mean normie in the sense of someone that doesn't want anything to do with this type of shit is now looking at it and being like, dude, it's everywhere. It's fucking everywhere. And just to keep it close to home, Halo TV show's a good example.
We live in currently. It was different 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and now, and it will be different 10 years from now, right? With that being said, it is getting a bit annoying. I agree. I think that it is so annoying to be told that you are a bad person if you don't believe in everything I say. And I think that it is wrong to hate on people on a certain race. I think, generally speaking, unless you have a good reason, it is weird and kind of sus to race swap people, and Disney is really guilty of doing this. But also...
Maybe one of the worst. Maybe one of the worst for doing that is Disney.
So I think that everyone's forgotten the point of stories and movies and games. This is my point of view. I think that they're supposed to be a place that you work to, a place that you can have fun in to some degree or be entertained by. Some people, that's political stuff, but I think for most people, it's supposed to be an escape to a different world, a fantasy of some sorts. Like Halo is you're a sci-fi super soldier fighting aliens 500 years in the future. Now, I do want to talk about what this means for Halo. Like, was Halo some kind of political statement for its time? And I would say right out, no, I don't think it...
No. It definitely wasn't a political statement at all. It was just, ha ha ha, green man go, brrr. Obviously, there's so much more to it, but in a basic sense, that was it.
Did it have political or religious themes? Absolutely.
Absolutely! It's called the fucking Covenant. Of course it had religious themes. The game's called Halo. Of course it has religious themes. The whole thing is a holy war.
Absolutely. But first and foremost, the story came first, and then the undertone and the depth of it, kind of, taking it apart if you wanted to, maybe came secondary. He says, we've had a share of, I guess I would have to say diverse characters, but it wasn't because we needed to make sure there was a certain percentage of, fill in the blank. It was because there were either great actors or this was going to be a great character, right?
Sergeant Johnson, Miranda Keyes, Emil from Halo Reach is actually black, by the way.
Talking about Halo. It was never a part of any discussions were about, like, let's make sure we fill in the blanks so the game characters reflect perfectly the makeup of our society, right? This is just such a creatively dampening way of approaching things, which is why I feel like fans are rejecting this ideology. The fans...
I completely agree with him on that one. And the other thing as well is, this is looking way too deep into it, but games like Halo and Gears of War are some of the most anti-racist shit out there because it's all of humanity uniting. Well, you got your splinter factions and shit like that, but you get where I'm going.
Fans don't necessarily reject movies or games because of diversity or equity or inclusion, kinds of things that are forced into face. Certainly they don't like being preached to, but basically these are not good products. At the end of the day, he says, it's not fun to play, it is not interesting. These characters don't sound real. That's what ends up happening. People just don't like it. They're not good stories, they're not memorable. And I have to say, this is completely correct in my opinion.
It is completely correct. It absolutely is 100% completely correct, man. What a world we're living in where channels like HaloFollower are going, yeah, no, this is beyond a fucking joke at this stage. Like Gears of War. A series that was all about overly masculine, testosterone-filled men. And then you get to, we have to tell her story. What about her story? And then we're going to take the feminine approach to it. You're like, well, that just doesn't fucking work, does it?
You can't just race swap some characters and preach diversity and expect people to round of applause, right? I mean, maybe a few years ago, but it's just not working.
Not even a few years ago. No, absolutely not. Race swapping has always been controversial. I can remember Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul and people were like, nah, that's kind of fucked. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been a bit of a problem, okay? People just want accuracy to source material as much as possible, okay? Now, I think Liam Neeson played a good Ra's al Ghul, but that's because Liam Neeson's a good actor. But, you know, there was still that, doesn't really look like him though, does it?
Anymore. And I think, in a way, they're screwed. I don't know how much ChatGPT is going to be able to write their video games and movies for them, honestly, but it's just...
It won't. It won't. ChatGPT, said this before, say it again. There is no reality where AI can ever replace talented people. AI will never be able to create the story that is Halo 2.
Cringe to think that this is going to work forever, right? They are so creatively bankrupt. I feel like this is the only thing that Hollywood and Disney can push out at this point. And of course...
It's absolutely true. And I mean, what was it even that fucking retard Mark Hamill said about Rey Skywalker going, oh, let's just take a character, make him an orphan, put him on the desert, and give him a droid that has plans to an Imperial or Imperial adjacent super weapon. But this time it's different because it's a woman.
Of course, I've been concerned about Halo since day one, since all of this has been happening. Of course I want diversity, of course I want equity, and all of those great things that make up a good society. However, if you do it to just preach to people, forgetting about the main point of the actual story, then you've completely lost the crowd. And it's
Agree. I agree with that. And you can have, believe it or not, I know it's hard to say in today's day and age, but it is possible to have political undertones in your story that somewhat reflect the real world without it being overbearing. Gears of War had some Iraq war references into it with like the whole emulsion war, you know, fighting over petrol, which led to the destruction of humanity, basically. That was a reference to the Iraq war. But does that overbear on the whole franchise? Absolutely fucking not.
It's understanding why there's a lot of pushback here, right? Why do these developers keep doing it, he says? It's simple. He says, fear. I can't say for certain what's in everybody's mind, but I know when I was there, when I was on the board of directors at Bungie, when I talked to the higher-ups at Microsoft, there was a lot of fear, and the fear started creeping in. There is fear that you are going to essentially get on the wrong side of some special interest group who can be very loud and very annoying, so let's placate those people. So I would say fear is probably one of those biggest things.
You know, the type of fear these people push is very simple to defeat. You just gotta say no. Just say no.
He continues, I don't think in my experience that these are deeply held beliefs. You have to understand that, especially in big companies, the C-suite and the executives, all they are doing is looking at the bottom line. I honestly think a lot of people are empty suits.
Oh, dude, absolutely! 100%! They are absolutely empty suits. Completely empty suits. That's a good way to describe it, actually.
They don't actually have core values, so they adopt the core values of the moment to make sure that they are on the right side so they don't get any sort of backlash.
And what happens in 20 years from now when society has changed and the pendulum has swifted yet again and shit that was considered to be not offensive today is now considered offensive later, right? What about that type of stuff? Then they're going to be in the shit, okay? But the other thing as well is on the subject of pendulums shifting, they always, it's ever since the dawn of recorded time, it always swings and then back another way and then back another way and then back another way. And shit, it's just a constant, humanity is just a constant state of retardation. Which way do we want to swing? I can remember being a kid in school, right? And everyone in school was making fun of Fox News. American Fox News. We're in Australia as children making fun of a Fox News interview because, and I'm sure some of you remember this, remember when they tried to push the narrative that Mass Effect was nothing more than a sex simulator? And they brought one of the, I believe it was one of the developers on, and they brought one of the developers on to talk about it, and he was getting bombarded by all these retards, and he just was like looking at them completely confused, going, sex simulator? What the fuck? And then he turns around and goes, how many of you actually know what the story of this game is? And all of them went silent.
And that's the indictment against these kinds of people who end up running the companies, he says. But I rarely found people with strong moral character running the companies. They tend to just go the way the wind blows. I want to stop there for a second. So he's definitely touched upon a lot of really key things that are happening. I think there is a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety of pissing off the wrong crowd. And as a content creator, I totally understand, man.
Oh, dude. let me cut you off right there. If you try to appease everybody, you're going to piss off everybody and no one will be happy. You're better off, and I know his channel is like fucking 10 times the size of mine, but this is a worldwide fact. You're better off just saying what you honestly believe, and if people hate you for it, well, too bad. You're going to find people that like you. One thing that everyone can respect is being authentic. And more so, people can see through, when you're just trying to appeal to a certain crowd, whatever that crowd may be from whatever side of any aisle. People are seeing through it more and more. Just be honest with what you believe. If it's an unpopular opinion, but you believe it, stand by it. Cop the shit for it, but people will respect you for that.
But the thing is, the world is not sunshine and rainbows. You're gonna say something, even if you say something super sweet and nice, people will argue, and people will be...
Absolutely. There's people that find insults in a pile of roses.
Awful. But really, if you want to know if you're on the right side or not, look at your behavior. Are you treating people with kindness and respect? Even if you think your values are kind and respectful, if you still, at the end of the day, hate people and treat them bad because you think that they're not following your kind beliefs, then you're part of the problem. It makes me think about the Empire with Star Wars. I'm not even saying any side specifically, because all sides do this, right?
I think HaloFollower was spitting hot fire at the moment.
Really, really annoying how people think that the world is black and white, right? It's not. There's a lot of grays everywhere. I'd say almost nothing is black and white. There's very few things that are. So he says they aren't actual directors, they're not artists, they're not musicians, they're not writers, they haven't created anything. They might have come from marketing, but they just don't have good judgment when it comes to this. They have a lot of fear. So I would say fear is a big driving factor here.
That's the weird thing about this, man. That's the weird thing about this. And that's why we're seeing especially the AAA industry bubble burst. I mean, you know, subscribe to Gronkin on Dogs, the hashtag #1 non-shilling gaming podcast that goes in depth on these types of topics about the industry. This is absolutely one part of a fucking problem, okay? But it's not the whole problem with the industry. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Let's just keep it in scope.
I would say that, but I would also say that I think it's money, because I don't think any crowd, you could say, I'm just going to reference them because it's easy to understand, the woke crowd, I don't think that they're not necessarily attacking or pushing people into pushing this agenda necessarily either. I think maybe the people that are in charge of trying to make these shows and movies and games are probably adopting this ideology that is rather very new, by the way. And
nah, bruh. Nah, bruh. No, they absolutely are, and no, it's not new. Double L there.
I think that this has caused a lot of problems in the quality of entertainment overall. So
yeah, that part's true. That part's true. And that goes back to what you were talking about right at the start. When you start focusing on that type of shit, you know, story becomes on the back end.
Let's talk about Halo, right? So Marty says, when we were making Halo 2 in 2002 and 3, which was close enough after the 2-tower event, I'll call it, and if you know the story of Halo, it's about a group of religious zealots that essentially will unalive themselves to keep their religion going. So during that time, he talks about this, we were all of a sudden being asked to be very careful about the names of some people, references or phrases. And apparently this is why the Arbiter's name was changed. Well, that's not necessarily unreasonable, he says, because they...
I think everyone loves the name of Arbiter. That's just such a cool title. But anyway, go on.
Weren't trying to do any sort of allegory about political situation in the world. They just...
Okay, who in the chat has looked at Arbiter, Fel Vladimir from Halo 2 and thought, okay, this dude's a fucking terrorist from the Middle East? I don't think anyone ever saw that. You go, he's a fucking alien. He's a lizard man.
Had a story and they wanted to tell it in a video game format, right? Bungie wasn't trying to be woke and trying to make some statement where they were, or even being pro-American, where they were trying to be anti-Middle East, right? They were just trying to tell a story that happened to fall in a maybe inconvenient time in the world.
Yeah, okay. And I thought I was expanding the scope too much. Oh, okay. Anyway.
Right? Well, this actually caused problems with Halo 2's development. He says, if you know the story, one of our main characters, the Arbiter, was not originally named that. The Arbiter. During the whole time we were making Halo 2, the character's name was Dervish. We had recorded...
That's shit! I think they made the right choice to change the name. Halo 2's production is an interesting story within itself, man. Halo 2 is the greatest unfinished, broken game to ever release.
all the voices, I had directed all the actors, and everybody was using the term dervish. And then we found out, oh, this could be seen as an insult to some Islamic religious figure known as dervishes. So we had to change it. He ultimately admitted we were forced to change the name to a different name, so we came up with the Arbiter. I was never...
That's a way better name anyway.
Really happy about it. I thought, this is an artistic choice. This is what we had from the beginning. And so he says, we were not trying to make any sort of political or religious comment. We have tons of religious imagery, the Ark, Halo, the Covenant. And so he says, I don't see...
Could you imagine, hey, what's your favorite Halo character? Darvish. You're like, nah, I like the Arbiter.
Why Dervish specifically was a problem, right? Well, anyway, he talks about how there's very little pushback against, like, evil white guys, especially men, evil corporations, no problem. You will never get pushback on those things. Or how you make Christians hypocrites and bad people. That's easy. But if you put...
Yeah, I do agree with that. In today's society of entertainment, it's very easy to make those types of people villains. Never want to make them the good guys or anything like that, which does go... That is a problem within itself. That is, and I'm not some hardcore Christian person. I'm not even some hardcore religious person. I mean, I definitely have my beliefs. I have the Bible. You know, I don't flex that on anyone because that's fucking gay. Oh, look at me. I'm into God and all that type of shit. You know, you're probably got something you're hiding. Anyone that does that type of shit. But there is definitely a problem in today's entertainment with. You can always look at like a poster and go, okay, that dude there, he's going to be the villain.
Push back against any of these, I guess, special interest groups, as he said, you know, you're gonna get destroyed, right? So, I will say that that's not necessary. I don't agree with that necessarily. I think that, well, for one, I think calling a certain race bad because they're a certain race, well, we all know what that is, right? And I'm not gonna say it because demonetization, but
racist. The word's racist.
You know what it is, all right? You know what it is, and that is wrong. Again, question your behavior. Are you treating people with respect? I don't care what color the person is. Are you treating people respectfully, right? That's all that really matters at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I disagree, though. I think that a lot of people have been pushing back specifically against, like, any kind of anti-religious stuff or anti-specific race stuff, right? Even against white people, even though that's been a problem. Now, my thoughts about this affect...
And that comes into the whole, you can't be racist against white people. You go, that's one of the most racist fucking things I've ever heard in my life, man. And you know what's so wild? People like me who will get on stream and maybe make some what is considered edgy jokes, you know, we're the ones that are targeted. But these types of people will sit down and just spout the most racist shit you've ever heard in your life without any punchline to it, and then just leave it at that. You'd be like, okay, I think there's a problem there. It's the same type of thing where, like, you look at, like, a male feminist, you go, yeah, you got bitches in your basement, don't I? Like, that's just fucking weird. People, you know, like me, will talk about, like, some Latina booty and be like, oh, damn, let me have a piece of that, right? But then you get the other ones that are hardcore fucking believe all women, and it's like, okay, you're doing some weird shit. You got bitches in the basement.
Halo 7 is, I think there's a low likelihood of it being a big issue, but the fact is I think Halo 2 flew a little bit too close to the sun, at least with the name Dervish. I have no idea about the context of that name, but I guess that's...
All in all, I think it's just a shit name, and the name Arbiter is such a better title and fits more in the world of Halo, in the universe of Halo. You know, imagine that, like, oh, we have the Mausoleum of the Dervish. You'd be like, that sounds shit. The Mausoleum of the Arbiter. You're like, okay, that sounds cool.
Seemed inappropriate for the time, right? And so Microsoft is aware of this stuff. And I don't think Microsoft is as bad about any of this kind of social injection into everything.
Everyone point and laugh at him.
Like, everything's got to be a political, social statement, and it's like preaching everyone like this is the right thing to believe now. Get aboard, or your life will be destroyed. Kind
Everyone point at him and laugh.
Of narrative, and it's just gross because at the end of the day, games are meant to be about escapism. At least that's what I thought. Ever since I was a kid,
that part's correct.
time I picked up a game, I wasn't trying to involve myself in the world. Like, if you want to be political, then you should go do what you want to do, but I think making every piece of media some kind of political statement that you're a good person is annoying. And this isn't to say or invalidate that movement or push at all. Like, I support the movement. I just don't support everything that everyone in the movement is saying and doing.
Wait, hold on. Let me rewind that. What movement is he talking about?
I think making every piece of media some kind of political statement that you're a good person is annoying. And this isn't to say or invalidate that movement or push at all. Like, I support the movement. I just don't support everything that everyone in the movement is saying and doing. So that's just what my thoughts are on it. And if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said or Marty said in this article, I don't agree with everything he said here, but you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Let's have a discussion about it. All right, guys, you take care. Peace.
I think, for the most part, Marty O'Donnell is absolutely right in what he's saying. Of everything in there, the one thing that stood out to me was Darvish. I agree. To me, that at the end just sounded like he's covering his ass, and, you know, which is funny because he talks, well, Marty talks about how, you know, you're just scared. You're just scared to say no and stand up for yourself. That's kind of what HaloFollower did right at the end, man. But do you know what this does show me? We've now reached a stage where even people like HaloFollower are seeing what it is. They see the problem. They know it's a problem. They can acknowledge that it's a problem, but they still want to tiptoe around it. And hey, that's fine. If you want to tiptoe around it, I would prefer you actually just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Good video, though. He makes great videos. His Halo lore videos are